This is Sigmund Bloom coming to you with the Week 16 recap. Cecil Lammey is on assignment as the Broncos are playing on Christmas Eve. What do we find under the Christmas tree on Christmas Eve for our fantasy teams? Let's start out with Cleveland, 36, Houston, 22. Amari Cooper setting the franchise record, 11 catches, 265, and 2 touchdowns. Josh Gordon, we haven't mentioned that name for a while. That's who held the record before Amari Cooper. He is a golden ticket to the finals. If you somehow had Joe Flacco in a one quarterback league, you were extremely happy in a 2 quarterback league, he might be your golden ticket. And yes, David Njoku scored again as Flacco, not just rescuing the Browns season, rescuing fantasy seasons, even if you don't have Flacco. Jets are coming in next week to Cleveland. Now, if Cleveland wins, they're probably in the playoffs. They still control their destiny. They're looking good here at 10 wins. The Texans actually aren't looking as bad as you think. It was worse than the score indicates. Before garbage time, all we had was a Dameon Pierce kick return touchdown in this one. You saw alternating Case Keenum and Davis Mills at first, and it was actually Davis Mills having a much better game in the end, coming on late in garbage time, helping you out if you had Dalton Schultz in. If you had Nico Collins in, at least you got a score and a 2-point conversion. But you see the difference with Case Keenum when it's not the Tennessee defense, when it's the Cleveland defense, one of the best defenses in the league. Not so much. But with Tennessee coming and another division game in week 18, the Texans can still get in with 2 wins. And next week, C.J. Stroud should be back. So even if Devin Singletary didn't come through for you this week, he was still the lead back. Collins healthy enough to play and score. Noah Brown, the big disappointment in this one after having the big week last week. But again, if you survive this game, you're happy to have your Texans next week in a matchup against Tennessee. Moving on, a game that looked like it was going to be really boring and actually ended up exciting. Jets 30, Washington 28. Now, in this one, we saw on the Washington side, once again, what could have happened with this Washington offense if they had gone with Jacoby Brissett all season. As Brissett, for the second straight week, comes in, looks good, makes this offense, now it is against a garbage time defense for the second straight week, but still actually leads the Commanders back from a deficit at halftime, 27-7, to a 28-27 lead that the Jets eventually overtake them at the end. The Washington offense, what you saw here, Chris Rodriguez with some very stubborn, tough running. In deep dynasty leagues, you're taking note here, even though this is Brian Robinson's backfield for now. Eric Bieniemy likes Rodriguez. Will Eric Bieniemy be there next year? We'll see. Logan Thomas, actually, the one winner in garbage time here. This is going to be a tough matchup for that Washington passing game. Hopefully, you didn't have any Dotson or McLaren or Samuel in your lineup. Logan Thomas getting the touchdown. Otherwise, 3 touchdowns on the ground here in the big Washington comeback effort. This franchise is really at a dead end right now. And, well, playing San Francisco next week, that sounds like another dead end for this offense, although this game wasn't over until the fat lady sang, or Greg Zuerlein kicked a long field goal. I think Zuerlein is German for fat lady singing as the Jets get a win and they're trying to save Robert Saleh's job. Well, I know Breece Hall, your second golden ticket in this one, 95 yards rushing, actually came through as a runner, the 2 touchdowns, and got a lot of catches late as the Jets had to scramble to come back and win. 12 catches for 96 yards. Garrett Wilson came up a little gimpy early in this one, but still was 9 for 76. So the Washington matchup comes through, at least in PPR leagues, for you. Trevor Siemian, not great against Washington, but good enough to get the win where actually it was mostly the running game and the defense, special teams doing the work earlier in this one. And with the Jets playing spoiler against Cleveland next week, and I guess we say every week, if Robert Saleh is not the coach of this team next year, a franchise other than the Jets will get a good coach. And, well, we'll see what the future holds for this team. Moving right along in week 16, Seattle at Tennessee. Let's talk about these cardiac Seahawks. The Seahawks and Geno Smith, a slow start, but he came on in the fourth quarter, and they get the win. We saw Geno Smith with a solid passing game Certainly next week against the Steelers, you may even give him some low quarterback one consideration. Quarterback two, superflex leagues. You are trusting him as he is healthy now. Kenneth Walker's healthy. Tennessee run defense really limited him. This was more of a pass-heavy game for the Seahawks, which made you happy if you started Tyler Lockett, who got 8 catches. DK Metcalf, a one-handed toe drag touchdown that was so good, even the refs thought it couldn't have been a catch upon review. The touchdown drew 2 more pass interference penalties in this one. Too bad we don't get points for those. Jackson Smith and Jigba got a little banged up early in this one. He was even solid with his 6 for 61 line. So this offense running through Geno Smith, as it probably should next week against the Steelers, good for these 3 wide receivers, not as much for Walker, although you got to leave him in despite the disappointing result today. Not disappointing for Seahawks fans, as now they're back in the playoffs with this comeback win. We'll see if they can finish that out. Derrick Henry on the Titans side, helping finish the week, hopefully moving on for fantasy teams. Throws another touchdown. It always works. It always works. Why don't they call it more often? And rushing for a touchdown, 88 yards. Henry throws it to Chiggy Okonkwo. So if you went with Okonkwo, if you weren't sure about your tight end options this week, Okonkwo with the 6 for 63 in the touchdown line. Touching Spears at least had 67 total yards and 5 receptions. Nuke Hopkins, kind of predictably, even though Devin Witherspoon was banged up out for this one, not doing much. The passing game not doing much. Ryan Tannehill not able to lead this team back to a tying field goal in a back and forth game. But again, as goes Derrick Henry, so goes this team, so goes fantasy teams. Not so much Ryan Tannehill as well. I don't know what's next for this Titans team, but they have a game against Houston. They have a game against Jacksonville left, so they can still determine who wins this NFC South division that seemingly nobody wants to win. We move on in week 16, and we move on to a game that saw maybe the gas run out for these Indianapolis Colts. Indianapolis loses at Atlanta 29-10, and now they have a tougher road to the playoffs after it seemed like things were coming up roses for them looking ahead at their schedule. Gardner Minshew without Michael Pittman against a decent pass defense really struggles in this one. They did have a good opening drive that Jonathan Taylor finished with a touchdown, and that's about all Jonathan Taylor did in this one. So hopefully you survived Jonathan Taylor's game, and you will get a chance next week as Indianapolis goes to Houston. Indianapolis has the Vegas Raiders coming, maybe a better matchup, and maybe they can get Michael Pittman back. It looked like he was going to be playing in this one as a Friday, and it seems like he went backwards in the concussion protocol. Maybe an ominous sign as this team is trying to make a surprise push to the playoffs here. Speaking of surprise pushes here, Atlanta, maybe a surprise push to save Arthur Smith's job. I don't know, but you did see Arthur Smith actually go back to Bijan Robinson. The 7 catches, 12 carries, 122 total yards, no touchdown. But if you went back to Bijan Robinson, you had to be happy with this result. Taylor Heineke really looked like the Desmond Ridder game plan here. And Desmond Ridder throwing a lot to tight ends and running backs. That's what Taylor Heineke did. Not as much to Drake London. Man, you know Drake London is a good player in this game. The 3 catches he got, tough to bring down, a tough customer at the catch point. But not enough volume here as Atlanta was able to control this game. Kyle Pitts comes out with a long touchdown early, another catch, and then only one other short catch for the rest of the game. So you're not, at first you thought you might have regretted benching him. Now, well, he was probably better than the option you put in, but not enough that it's going to haunt you for the offseason. What might haunt us for the offseason, again, is if Arthur Smith can somehow sneak into the playoffs here, save his job. And this one could have been a little better. Heineke led some field goal drives. Tyler Algier had a long touchdown run. So the fantasy players we like for the Falcons not coming through with the massive games, and they head to Chicago next week as we see, again, the big story for fantasy. Not so much will they make the playoffs, but will they save Arthur Smith's job? Did week 16 save your fantasy season? Well, it helped if you had players in the Detroit at Minnesota game. This one was a high-scoring game as expected, and a game where the Lions clinch their first playoff berth of the home game in 30 years. Ford Field will indeed host its first playoff game. I look forward for all of you Lions fans. And hey, it may not be until the division round. More on that. Jared Goff avoids the big mistake, passes the test against Brian Flores' defense. And this one they sweat down to the end here. And if they had lost this game, well, not even a playoff spot was assured. But instead, now a division title and a potential number one seed, depending on how things shake out. Of course, there was a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown. Of course, there was a lot of the running game. But we're seeing Jahmyr Gibbs show, yeah, he can be a short yardage running back, an effective short yardage running back. So he's the running back one. David Montgomery's the running back two. Tough matchup against Dallas next week, but both of them are definitely going to be lineup worthy. Sam Laporta didn't do as much for us in this one. Can't really complain. If you made it this far, he was a big reason why. He'll be back in your lineup next week. Jameson Williams, 6 targets, 5 catches, only 43 yards, but something to watch here if you're looking for a what the heck flex next week against Dallas. We did see you can get pass protection to throw deep against Dallas. We're seeing in the Miami-Dallas game today. Perhaps you could make something happen there. But Jared Goff, despite some shaky moments leading up to this game, doesn't make the big mistake again. Going to Dallas, if Detroit can win their last 2 games, which includes Dallas, and San Francisco loses against Baltimore on Christmas night, the road to the Super Bowl will go through Detroit. Will not go through Minnesota. Nick Mullins, well, depending on your interception dings, maybe had a big game, 411 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And he lost TJ Hawkinson and Jordan Addison during this game. So what you see and what you like about Nick Mullins, there was a point in this game where it seemed like maybe he should be benched. He was making some very poor decisions and looked like he was really out there winging it. But because he was out there winging it, he kept going to Justin Jefferson. And Justin Jefferson has been a rough ride for the teams that took Justin Jefferson in the first round with the number 1 pick because of injuries, because of he's back, he's not back. But if you're still alive, then he probably helped you stay alive until next week. With Addison going out, with Hawkinson going out, it was KJ Osborne with a solid game. We'll talk about him on the waiver wire show. And Brandon Powell, or at least you'll see him in the waiver wire column. Not sure we'll have a waiver wire show on Tuesday. We'll see, folks. As holiday week, hope you're all having a tremendous holiday time leading up here on Christmas Eve. Ty Chandler gets a touchdown if you went with him. And that's about it, as Minnesota was trailing, or it was a back and forth game, trailing in the second half. They didn't really rely on the run with Chandler like they did last week. Even though Alexander Mattison was active, Chandler got the work. Didn't really help your fantasy teams. Now Minnesota is in the 7-8 scramble. A lot of teams at 7-8, including Green Bay. So next week when Minnesota and Green Bay play, we can look at that as a pre-playoff game. The loser of that one's going to have a tough road. The winner is going to have a much easier road to make the playoffs. This game, which was basically a game for the division, for Minnesota to stay alive, for Detroit to clinch, a lot of thrills in this one, and certainly a game that for fantasy lived up to billing. A game that very much exceeded billing for fantasy. Our last early game of week 16, Green Bay at Carolina. And Green Bay does escape with the win here. Green Bay, Jordan Love, massive game, helping a lot of 2 quarterback superflex leagues teams go on, and had a good enough start that if you went with him over just about anybody in your 1 quarterback league, you were happy. So he had 2 passing touchdowns, 1 running touchdown against a team that had a good pass defense on paper, statistically. Was that because they trailed so much? They trailed a lot in this one, but Jordan Love still had a good game. Aaron Jones finally looked healthy in this one. Didn't get a touchdown. Didn't have a massive fantasy result. Could have been a lot bigger. A.J. Dillon vultured a touchdown. Jordan Love vultured a touchdown. So kind of a bad beat if you had Aaron Jones in and lost, because he made the right move. He looked terrific. Romeo Doubs, last man standing, as no Jaden Reed, no Christian Watson. Dontavian Wicks goes out after scoring a touchdown at least with a chest injury. So Doubs had a good game. Tucker Kraft is here to stay. Maybe when Luke Musgrave is healthy, we might not be able to start either one of these guys, but we know he's a player. We end up with Bo Melton, former draft pick of Seattle, a late round pick, making a contribution here as all of these wide receivers go down. Kind of leapfrogs Malik Heath and Samari Toure here in very deep leagues. You're watching that. And again, Green Bay staying alive and a win at Minnesota next week would help their cause. Bryce Young, was it a game that really gives us a lot of hope? Was it a game that had, oh, that's what a number one overall pick looks like? Fives? Yeah. But you did see some good mobility. You saw him hanging in and making some throws. You also saw him not able to make certain throws. But you most importantly saw a near win. Well, you most importantly saw a 300-yard passing game, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, ran for 17 yards. Kept his team in it and forced Jordan Love to lead a field goal drive late after tying this one back up at 30. DJ Chark with 2 touchdowns, not in anyone's lineup, but at least for him, showing teams that maybe he has more left after an offseason surgery they hoped would bring him back to form. Not Jonathan Mingo, who had, for a few weeks at least, looked like the number one target. Adam Thielen did enough if you put him in, and caught one that set up a potential field goal attempt, but Bryce Young was about 1 or 2 seconds late. Thielen didn't hand the ball to the ref right away. I don't know if we can put that on him. But we saw also Tommy Tremble coming on here, something to watch for the future. Chuba Hubbard at least got a touchdown. Smith Marset getting the touchdown on a run to a secret weapon. It wasn't Laviska Shenault for this team that worked out. It was Smith Marset as that wide receiver who can also take some carries out of the backfield. Chicago's happy here. Again, weekly reminder, they're holding Carolina's first round pick, which looks like the number one overall pick, as Carolina goes to Jacksonville. As we get ready to tuck ourselves in and wait for Santa Claus or however else we enjoy this time with people that we love and care about at this holiday season, I want to just touch on real quickly what's going on in the late games. The Bucs are blowing out the Jags. Again, nobody wants to win this division. If you're counting on any Jaguars, it is a rough time for you in your fantasy league. We'll see if we can get some garbage time production. Baker Mayfield continues to surge. Rashad White gets a touchdown. Mike Evans, 2 touchdowns here. The Bucs control their destiny, and if they can beat New Orleans next week, this will probably be their division. The Cardinals and the Bucs at halftime. Kyler Murray not doing anything to make the Cardinals want to invest in him for the future or make anybody want to trade for him. Justin Fields doing things to make the Bears want to invest in him for the future. Is that the right move? We'll be talking about that a lot over the next few months. We also saw James Conner get a receiving touchdown here, still running the ball well. So if you stuck with James Conner, you're happy with what you got so far. Not so much Kyler Murray in the passing game, but Kyler Murray has still done something in this one. It's Justin Fields and Cole Kmet. DJ Moore gets banged up in this one. You're not going to get much out of him. Sorry. You are going to get a 100-yard game out of Kmet, a rushing touchdown out of Khalil Herbert, if you went with him, with Dante Foreman being announced out for this one. So Herbert getting his shot as this backfield continues to stay in motion. And the Bears, again, with or without Justin Fields, pretty exciting future for this Bears team and all their draft assets. Cowboys start fast here with the Dolphins coming on. It was CeeDee Lamb with just an amazing, tremendous play, which is routine for him. Not much else happening as the Miami defense, Vic Fangio, every day looking good. This defense holding the Cowboys as of right now to a 7-point first half. Tua Tagovailoa, not so much going deep to Tyreek Hill, although Hill had one that could have been a long touchdown clank off his hands. There was a deep ball to Jalen Waddle, but actually he's been getting it to Cedric Wilson and Durham Smythe, Robbie Chosen, spreading it around here against the Cowboys defense. And Raheem Mostert in this one comes out, has his lineman tackle him at the goal line and land on him. Does come back in and get a receiving touchdown in the first half. Over 20 touchdowns now for him. Hope everybody gets what they want in their fantasy matchups. Hope everybody gets what they want in terms of the people, the love, and feeling like you can look around on Christmas Day, whether you celebrate Christmas or not, and feel good about your life. I know I feel good about getting to spend all this time, well, not with Cecil today, he's serving the Broncos and serving the NFL, but we're serving you first and foremost because you make us feel so good. You give us the best community to serve, being part of the Football Guys family, and really giving us something that provides as much normalcy and a sense of something to look forward to for you. It gives us that same feeling too That's what we look forward to every day, not just on Christmas Eve, but on this Christmas Eve. As always, because the big guy might be coming down the chimney. Stay classy.